Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another segment of our Bachman's Victory Garden series. We're really excited to have you guys joining us today, and we'd love to hear how your guys' garden's doing. And you can drop down in the comments, let us know what's doing well in your garden, what are you having a hard time with, anything and everything. We'd love to help. Today we just kind of want to go through and do a little bit of a checkup on our own garden and maybe give you a couple ideas of some things you should be paying attention to and looking for in yours. A couple of things we're going to go over. We're going to talk about staking and supporting some of the special plants we have in our garden that just need a little bit of extra care. We're going to talk about thinning and weeding, and we're also going to talk just a little bit about harvesting at the end. So just getting right into it, I think it'd probably be best if we talked about thinning and weeding first. So every good gardener should really be practicing thinning for sure, and not everybody does it. It seems a little bit counterintuitive to want to remove plants that you've grown just because, like, why would you want to do that? Well, a good analogy to think about it, so say you take one of our square foot area and you assume that area of dirt has a limited amount of energy it could possibly dedicate to plants inside of it. So say you have 100 plants in that area, well then that energy has to be divided 100 ways. And if you compare that to, say, if there were 20 plants in that area, well then that energy, each plant is going to be able to receive more of it, and you're going to have a stronger plant, and your fruit's going to be ready faster, and basically it's just going to be more healthy for that area of the garden. So when we're going to go about thinning, it's important to understand the spacing. So you can find that on the back of any seed packet that you plant. So if you look at carrots are supposed to be properly spaced about 1 inch apart. So what you're going to do is you're just kind of going to go through and you're going to pinch off the carrot, put your finger down all the way to the soil and just gently remove extra carrots that don't meet the 1 inch requirement. And you're just going to slowly move down the whole row, slowly removing anything extra, including any weeds that might be in your row. While you're doing this, you're going to want to be really careful not to be too hard on the roots, especially with something like a carrot where the actual carrot actually grows in the roots under the ground. If you're not gentle when you're removing them, you can actually disturb the plants that you're trying to keep. So you can kind of just go through the whole thing like this, like I've done on this row, and just remove the carrots every inch, and you can discard the waste. So you can see the difference already between this row compared to our other two. You can discard your waste, and then basically the idea now is that these plants have more access to the soil nutrients, and they also have enough space where they can grow to full size without having to compete with the others. Another thing you should be paying attention to is weeding right now. Everybody knows about weeding, and that's a pretty common thing to do, but it's even easier to do that when you're using a square foot gardening setup like we have, because you can actually go 1 square at a time. So if you look at our beets here, we know where our seed beds were that we planted, so you can clearly see there's a beet here, here, and here, and there's 3 rows long, and it's really obvious. So you don't have to be a horticulturist to figure out that anything else growing in this square foot area that isn't in our seed beds must be a weed, and you can remove it. So I can take all these out, and you just kind of want to scrape them off and remove them, de-root them. It's easiest to do it while they're young so that you don't have to work super hard to actually get them removed. And once you weed out one area, you can just move to the next until you're done with the entire garden. The last thing that you should note in regards to thinning and weeding is that when you're done, it's really important to water them in. You just want to give the roots a chance to reset in their place, because you're disturbing the topsoil, which could give them an opportunity to, you could damage a little bit of what you're trying to keep. The next thing we wanted to go over is how to deal with supporting some of our special plants. So one of those that we're growing, we planted some snow peas in our garden over here. And snow peas are a vine plant, which means you could let them grow on the ground if you wanted. The problem with that is that they're going to be a weaker plant overall because they have less exposure to sun, and the peas themselves are going to be more susceptible to disease and pest and rot because they're laying on the ground. So what we decided to do to make sure our garden still looks sharp was we elected to use this decorative trellis. And what you're going to do is you just kind of want to centrally locate that in the square foot area, And then you can either use twine and tie up your peas, or you can do what we did and just kind of twist the vine around one of these bars. And then at the tips of the pea vine, they're called tendrils, and those will actually start grabbing on, and eventually the pea will hang on 100% by itself without any extra needed support. And we actually selected this trellis because our peas are going to be about 3 to 4 feet tall, which means that they're fully mature height. They're going to be right around here, which allows our garden to still look sharp because we have this nice decorative trellis on the top part. Another special plant that we have in our garden, we have it both in our in-ground garden and in our raised garden, is tomatoes. So tomatoes on their own are also a vine plant, but they have heavy fruits, which means if you don't support them, they're also going to lay on the ground and be more susceptible to rots and bugs and wildlife and other things like that. So there's a couple different methods you can use to support them that'll allow them to grow more healthily. One of those is cage, as you can see what we have set up here. So the benefit to a cage is it's really low maintenance, and it allows the plant it takes less water to grow a cage tomato plant than it would any other type, because the foliage that'll fill up in this area is actually going to shade the roots below it and it'll actually insulate the soil so it can stay moist longer. When you're applying in a cage, you basically just want to gently slide the cage over the top of the tomato, and you want to make sure to be really careful not to damage any of these branches as you're pushing these bars past it, just slowly sliding those to safe places. And then once you have it firmly placed in the ground, you want to remove any branch that's like 8 inches or lower from the dirt. You can take that out. They're called suckers, and they're called that because they basically just take energy from the plant, but they're never going to be able to provide us a usable fruit. So we'd much rather use that energy in something we can actually harvest. Another method we can use for harvesting tomatoes, or for supporting tomatoes, is the staking method. So the staking method we demoed over here in our raised garden. The staking method is a little bit more labor intensive. However, it'll allow you to have your fruit earlier, and they'll oftentimes be larger. And that's because they'll have more access to the sun, because it's going to be able to branch out more. Whereas the caged, they're going to produce a lot of foliage in a central location and shade itself from the sun. When you're putting a stake in, it's important that you select a stake that's strong enough to actually hold up the weight of a full-sized tomato plant. And then once you put it in the ground, you want to make sure it's at least 5 inches away from the base of the tomato, like you can see on ours. And that's to protect the roots from damage. And then once you have it in, you want to be able to fasten it to the stake. And the way that you go about doing that is we sell this at the Bachman store here, but it's a soft wire. It's like a soft wire mesh that when you wrap it around like the fragile tomato vines, it won't be damaged in the wind and things like that. If you don't have access to something like this, a good alternative is using cloth or any other type of soft material. And then what you want to do is you want to just come up from the bottom, and you're going to fasten it to the stake. And the correct way to do it is you're going to wrap around the stake once so that you're fastened to the correct part of the stake that you want. Then find an area on the tomato that's above one of these side branches. You do that so that the tie doesn't slide down. And then you want to leave a little bit of space in here when you fasten it on. And you're just going to twist it on. And now you're attached to the stake. But as you can see, I left a little bit of play in here for the tomato. And the reason for that is you want to leave some room for the tomato to grow, because this is still going to get bigger. And you don't want to be constricting it with a tie. And like I said, the benefits to this is you're going to get fruit earlier, and the tomatoes themselves are actually going to be most likely larger. You also want to go through here just like we did over there, and you're going to remove all the branches that are below 8 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead with a clipper and cut them all off, because even if they were to get a tomato, it's going to lay on the ground anyways. So we're not actually going to be able to harvest it because it's only going to rot. And then you can go ahead and discard these leaves also. So whatever you choose to use, it's really up to you. A lot of it depends on how much time you're able to put into your garden. The stake method is obviously more labor intensive, and the cage method it's kind of like a you do it once and you're done type of a thing. But like we said, we're really happy that you guys could tune in to watch with us. But we did want to talk about one more thing before we're done. And that's something that we're really excited about. And we know you guys are too. And that's harvesting. Because you put all this work into your garden, the best part is obviously reaping the rewards of it. And right now is the first time that we're seeing certain vegetables and herbs actually be ready to harvest. So like for example, our lettuce here. Our lettuce is ready to go. So you can actually just go in, cut it off, and you're just trying to make sure you kind of want to take mostly the leaves, but you want to leave no more than a quarter or no less than a quarter of the plant there. And that's so that it has enough leaf surface area to produce sugars so that it can actually regenerate so you can have lettuce for the rest of the year. And we could actually go through for all of our garden and evaluate. Most of it will probably be ready to be harvested sometime in the next week or two. And we hope your guys is like that too. Again, I just wanted to reiterate, we're really excited and happy that you guys were willing to tune in and watch with us for the day. And like we said before, we really want you guys to feel free to reach out to us with any questions. You can shoot us a message on Facebook, you can email Bachman's, or you can even call our customer service line, and we'd love to help. And with that, I just want to say again, reiterate, thanks for watching and tuning in with us, and happy gardening.